Where does Greater Idaho go from here? Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is another declaration of truth from your host, Terry A. Hurlbut. The Greater Idaho movement was merely a curiosity outside of eastern Oregon 2 years ago. Except for proponents of interstate or even international secession, no one paid it any heed outside of eastern Oregon. Within eastern Oregon, of course, it was likely topic A. 11 counties out of 15 whole or nearly whole counties east of the Cascade Mountains have voted for it. But only after the Idaho House of Representatives passed a resolution of invitation did anyone else take it seriously. Now that they have, many more people are talking about it, and inertia, born of resentment of the very idea of interstate secession, now emerges as its chief obstacle. Before I begin, I want to give a shout out to the Greater Idaho organization, to which I've left a link in the description, for sharing my earlier article on their Twitter feed. I've left a link in the description to that tweet also. I also want to shout out to the prime sponsor of this channel, which is Conservative News and Views. Link in the description. And be sure to check out the awesome CNAV Store. Scroll down near the bottom for that link. Lots of great merchandise there, especially this t-shirt that I have chosen for today, which reads, "Thanks for the free trial of communism, but I'd like to cancel." Which is the whole point. A majority of voters in 11 Oregon counties want to cancel their subscription to communism. And if at least 4 other counties are smart, they'll cancel it too. One more thing. If you like what you're about to hear, you can like this video. You can also click the bell icon to get a notice every time I come out with a new one. In fact, do you see the new icon, the heart shape with the US dollar sign in it? That's the super thanks icon. If you really want to keep these videos coming, click that and leave me a tip. Any currency will do, as long as it's legal tender. Now, before I go any further, I must give a definition of a word that came up several times in my search of the local media. The instrument of invitation that passed the Idaho House of Representatives and the instrument of secession that a sympathetic senator introduced in the Senate of Oregon are both called joint memorials. The American Heritage Dictionary defines a memorial in legislative usage as, quote, "a written statement of facts or a petition presented to a legislative body or an executive," close quote. The United States Congress and most state legislatures pass resolutions when they are not passing laws. The legislatures of Oregon and Idaho and their respective chambers are taking up memorials in relation to Greater Idaho. Perhaps this kind of memorial, by that definition, is appropriate, because the boards of supervisors of 11 counties in one state have petitioned for secession from their home state and admission to a neighboring state. Or perhaps in Oregon and Idaho and in other states, memorial substitutes for resolution whenever another state uses the term. In any case, House Joint Memorial 1 passed the Idaho House by a vote of 41 to 28. Likewise, the Senate of Oregon is now considered Senate Joint Memorial 2. I've left links in the description of both documents. Of the two, Idaho HJM 1 is far more significant. Under the U.S. Constitution, no movement of interstate secession can succeed without the invitation of the legislature of the state any particular group of secessionists wish to join. Idaho House Joint Memorial 1 constitutes the invitation to Greater Idaho. The Greater Idaho movement proposes 2 phases of interstate secession, as its map page shows. Phase 1 draws a line across Oregon along the Cascade Mountains. It would include the counties of Baker, Crook, Gilliam, Grant, Harney, Lake, Malheur, Morrow, Sherman, Umatilla, Union, Wallowa, Wheeler, and the eastern parts of Deschutes, Jefferson, Klamath, and Wasco counties. Phase 2 would add the rest of Klamath County, plus Coos, Curry, Douglas, Jackson, and Josephine counties in Idaho, plus Lassen, Modoc, Shasta, Siskiyou, and Tehama counties, and portions of Butte and Plumas counties in California, and Asotin, Columbia, and Garfield counties in Washington state. Greater Idaho does not plan to include Bend, Oregon in Deschutes County. Thus far, Baker, Grant, Harney, Jefferson, Klamath, Lake, Malheur, Morrow, Sherman, Union, and Wheeler counties have voted yes. Wallowa County will vote on secession on May 23rd. Crook, Deschutes, Gilliam, Umatilla, and Wasco counties have not scheduled any votes. Josephine and Douglas counties voted against secession, which is why Greater Idaho adopted its two-phase plan. Now, the Idaho House, of course, has sent its invitation. Now the Idaho Senate considers its invitation. Governor Brad Little of Idaho claimed bragging rights. Whether that will translate into an invitation of his own, we'll wait for the Senate to pass HJM 1. If he's serious about inviting the Oregon counties, he'll sign when it gets to his desk. If not, not. Thus far, the Oregon Senate has taken no action on the measure, SJM 2, introduced in that chamber. The Idaho press has the closest thing to neutral coverage. They quoted Representatives Barbara Ehart of Idaho Falls and Judy Boyle of Midvale, who introduced the invitational resolution. Representative Ehart emphasized land and resource acquisition for Idaho. Representative Boyle emphasized moving the Idaho-Oregon border further west to buffer the existing population against Oregon's drug problems. Now, those drug problems are of Oregon's own making, because Oregon has legalized marijuana and is working on legalizing the hard stuff, if they haven't already. Idaho has legalized cannabidiol, that's marijuana oil, which is not psychoactive. It's alleged to have certain healing properties. They have also legalized hemp as opposed to cannabis sativa L, and tetrahydrocannabinol, the active hallucinogen in marijuana, remains illegal in Idaho. Representative Ilana Rubel from Boise, the Idaho House Minority Leader, suggested that Idaho would be welcoming in thousands of Medicaid and free lunch cases. Idaho, she said, would then have to pay for these. She further suggested that inviting in the Oregonians would be tantamount to balkanizing the country. KGW-TV quoted her more extensively. Quote, "We should not be self-segregating by ideology like this. I think we're on a path to civil war." Her words, not mine. "If we keep going down this path, we have got to learn to get along better and work together better. The answer cannot be to carve up the country and redraw lines that have been in place for a century or more, just so we can only be surrounded by people that perfectly agree with us." Unquote, Ilana Rubel. Representative Ned Burns of Bellevue, another Democrat, protested that the legislature should first pass property tax relief and a budget. Representative Greg Lanting, Republican from Twin Falls, expressed fear of creating oversized legislative districts. See, Idaho may currently have only 35 legislative districts. Voters decided that in 2020. So much for the neutral coverage, such as it is. I am now going to get to the adverse coverage. Before I do, I want to shout out to a sponsor who can really help you through the economic storms to come. That sponsor is oursilverlines.com. Do you feel like you're working harder for your money just to get by? You are not alone. The fluctuating economy, employment issues, and unexpected changes in life have left many families struggling over the past few years. Collecting gold and silver can help shield you against many of these challenges. But if you're like me many years ago, you don't know where or how to start. Our Silver Lines helps by connecting you with thousands of members who are learning the secrets to creating and protecting true wealth. by collecting precious metals. Whether you just want to collect rare and unique coins or take advantage of the business opportunities this company provides. Either way, they can help you learn to live an exceptional life. Visit oursilverlines.com to learn how you can build a legacy for your future. Now, Willamette Week quoted United States Representative Earl Blumenauer from Oregon. Apparently he's from Portland, he's in Multnomah County, as saying he would support the deal if Idaho would cede Boise. Well, that expresses the tone of some of the other local organs, whose editors seem to be laughing like hyenas. Randy Stapoulis of the Lewiston Tribune is typical. He said Idaho would not gain a House seat, and Oregon would flip its 2nd and 5th districts from Republican to Democratic. But he counted only the 11 current yes votes. Maybe no one told him that Greater Idaho wants at least 15 yes votes. That would represent 380,000 people, not 208,800 as he counted. Interestingly, Stapoulis hinted that Idaho was on track to get its 3rd House seat in the 2030 census anyway. Well, if Idaho won't take it away from Oregon, then they'll take it away from another state. Stapoulis also talked about Idaho's sales tax, which Oregon supposedly does not have. Hold that thought. I will address that later. Idaho State Public Radio quoted the same people that the Idaho Press did, and to the same effect. Clark Corbin of the Idaho Daily Sun, in an article in the Bonner County Daily Bee, also used gallows humor. With a wink and a smirk was how he characterized the passage of HJM 1. But he did take note that the people of Eastern Oregon feel Western Oregon does not represent them anymore. Betsy Johnson, a former candidate for governor of Oregon, at least asked the right question. Quote, what has made it so bad that they are prepared to go through the administrative expense and political hassle of trying to separate a piece of Oregon and move it into Idaho? Close quote. Much of the other statements bespeak sheer ignorance. First, take Representative Rubel's assumption that absorbing Oregon east of the Cascades would be a drain on Idaho. Yeah. To be sure, that region does not today return as much in taxes as it costs the state in expenditures. And yes, those expenditures include Medicaid and school lunches, as well as extensive state roads. And some have alleged that those counties would lose income from the forced closure of the weed shops. And they might also have head shops, I couldn't say. Anyway, both kinds of shop are illegal in Idaho. Let's assume these counties would lose that income for the sake of argument. Didn't anyone tell those laughing hyenas about the business opportunities the Eastern Oregonians would gain from joining business-friendly Idaho? The Claremont Institute estimates that the region could see a 2.1% jump in gross domestic product after the move. I have a link in the description of their study. Read it for yourselves. Now, this 2.1% jump wouldn't come about right away. Claremont estimates that Idahoans would initially have to pay $42 a head to welcome in the Oregon counties, whereas northwestern Oregon would save $363 a head. But then, consider these points, which I quote from the executive summary of that report. Taxing industrial developments that would not otherwise have materialized in Oregon. $1.8 billion in net new economic activity, $504 million in labor income, and the addition of 9,965 jobs. These 9,965 job holders, of course, would not be on Medicaid or getting free lunches for their children. Furthermore, Douglas and Josephine counties might want to rethink their no votes. they would benefit from phase 2 to the tune of $163 million for Douglas County and $124 million for Josephine County. Now that's an awful lot of moolah at which to turn up your nose for the sake of woke ideals. In fact, you want to know what they call that kind of thing in my day? To cut off your nose to spite your face. More to the point, those counties could pay for themselves, all of them, and they might even improve the economy of present-day Idaho. And why does Idaho bid fair to pick up a House seat anyway? Because people are flocking to Idaho to take advantage of economic opportunities simply not available in blue states. Finally, about that cap of 35 districts, the people of a new Idaho could change that. Quibbling about such details ill befits a representative of the people. Now, let's address Representative Rubel's canard about self-aggregation by ideology. Andrew Torba of GABFE now urges conservatives to balkanize and build. Apart from that, Representative Rubel has no room to protest what she calls self-aggregation by ideology. First, her ideas of getting along and working together likely mean extending her brand of woke policies everywhere so conservatives would have no place to go. Well, maybe that's why she is minority leader in the Idaho House of Representatives. Hers is the bankrupt ideology, and as Lincoln Brown of Pajamas Media points out, she knows she would be in a further minority should Idaho annex Oregon's eastern counties. Brown's further criticism is even more scathing. Listen to this. Well, gee whiz, Representative, if you feel that way about it, why not move to Portland, where you will enjoy a solid majority? I hear Portland is lovely in the spring, when the arsonists, vandals, and looters come out of hibernation. The first window of the year is broken, and the smell of the spray paint from fresh graffiti fills the air. The first shipments of fentanyl are arriving, and the weed is in full blossom. I understand that the morning sun looks majestic as it plays across the needles in the streets, and the winds of social change gently sway the tents in the homeless encampment. And that is all before the first fire of the season is lit. Unquote Lincoln Brown, unquote Lincoln Brown. Dr. Stephen Turley points that out. Without the Democratic voters, points out that without the Democratic voters in Multnomah County, Governor Kate Brown would have lost her Senate seat. I have a link in the description to Dr. Steve's latest video along that line. So, where does Greater Idaho go from here? Forward, of course. Betsy Johnson at least meant well. In fact, 81% of residents of the Willamette Valley want their state government to talk to the residents of the eastern counties and find out what's troubling them, as if neither they nor anyone else could guess. But talk is cheap. That administrative expense would pay for itself, as the Claremont Institute assured everyone. And if the political hassle is nothing, and that political hassle is nothing compared to the grinding tyranny of wokeism these residents must now endure. Oregon's woke dictators, and one can call them nothing else, keep those people from realizing their full economic potential. In fact, U.S. Senator Jeff Merkley of Oregon, Democrat of course, boasted of denying economic opportunity for bidding new fossil fuel infrastructure. Greater Idaho left a 4-tweet thread raking Merkley over the coals for such petty tyranny. I have links in the description to 2 of them, one of which has a picture of a pipeline. Between those 2, you'll get access to all the other 2. And what does the Portland and Salem Eugene axis do next? They throw sops to their eastern population by letting them run weed shops and possibly head shops or to grow weed. The resulting crime cancels out any possible economic benefit from that. Representative Judy Boyle of Midvale told the Idaho House State Affairs Committee about that crime. I have a link in the description of video of her doing just that. Dr. Steve Turley said it best. The Idaho-Oregon border is functionally obsolete, of only historical significance. The facts behind that history have disappeared. In their place have come new, brutal facts. Oregon is destroying itself as a state, while Idaho thrives. Interstate secession can at least save the eastern counties. And those who complain of self-segregation by ideology have none to blame but themselves for promoting a toxic ideology of their own. Links to the description of the article, to the Greater Idaho homepage, to their tweets showing my earlier article, to each of 2 joint memorials, to the Claremont Study, to Dr. Steve's video about Greater Idaho, to the short thread from Greater Idaho denouncing Oregon's senator for his ignorance about energy, to the video of Judy Boyle talking about what she saw at the Idaho-New Orleans border, to my Declarations of Truth Twitter account, and to Conservative News and Views. I've also left links to the awesome CNAV Store and to oursilverlives.com, as I also mentioned. You know already about how to like a video, turn on notifications, and leave a tip. And on the end screen, I'm going to leave a subscribe link to my channel and links to a new Greater Idaho playlist and the 2 videos I mentioned. This is Terry A. Hurlbut delivering another Declaration of Truth and reminding you to let the truth set you free.